We are recording today's video and it'll show up later on our YouTube channel and our newsletter, so you'll have a chance to share it out with friends, and those who can't be here today will have a chance to watch it. So just real quickly, a snapshot of the Million Acre Challenge. This slide calls attention to our soil health benchmark study, which is spearheaded by PASA, Association for Sustainable Ag. It's a long-term soil health research project that involves farmers up and down the eastern seaboard, and gives folks the chance to really get a sense of how their farm is performing in relation to other farms in their production systems. It's all anonymous, and I guess overall the value is somewhere around $450, and we do have spaces available in that program for the farmers who are interested. This slide also mentions our farmer-to-farmer networking opportunities. You're sitting in one right now. We also have learning circles, which bring together advanced producers by production system. And they are designed to put producers in community with each other so that they can learn about their soil health journeys kind of simultaneously. The main thing I really want to leave you with today, as far as the Million Acre Challenge is concerned, is that we are a farmer-focused initiative. We really do see farmers as the experts, not us, and recognize that the work that you all are doing to steward the land is really how we're going to all learn together. And our role is really just to help you do your best work. The QR code here will take you to our most recent or an opportunity to sign up for our newsletters and see our most recent one. We also encourage folks to enroll in the Million Acre Challenge. I don't like that word. I'm going to start changing it, because enroll sounds like you're back in school. But basically, it's an opportunity for folks, not just farmers, to just sign on, join the Million Acre Challenge and say, we're interested in this work. There's no fees, there's no future obligations. It's just a way for us to know who's in the community. I've mentioned our monthly newsletters. Our social media options are listed out there. If those are places that you frequent, we'd love to have you engage with us there, and we'll do the same in return. My email is at the bottom, and my colleague Lisa Garfield, who can't be with us today, is also listed there at the bottom. I'm with Chesapeake Bay Foundation. That's why we have two different email addresses.
I think it's 33.
If I can ask folks to mute while we're all just sort of working through the lunch and learn together, that would be great. And we'll get you in verbally towards the end. I also want to just mention Amy Mullen, who's with us today from Future Harvest. She's helping do some of the back end work for this program. All right, now I'm getting to the place that you're actually all here. I am so pleased to give a little introduction for our guests, Caleb and Alice Crothers, Alice Weddington Crothers. Alice, do you like to use your whole name?
No, I just go by Alice Crothers.
Okay, well, just wanted to double check on that. They have a lot of accomplishments, and I'm going to try to highlight some that are mentioned here on this slide, but give you just a little more meat on the bones of that. Alice and Caleb met while attending Carson Newman College in Tennessee. Alice is actually dialing in from Tennessee today. Caleb played football while pursuing his degree in business administration. He also served as a police officer and a member of the special operations team for the city of Knoxville. The couple moved to Long Green Farm together in 2015, and Caleb became the 8th generation to steward the family land. He serves as a board member of the Rosebank Cemetery, a board member of the Cecil County Farm Bureau, and of the National Dairy Research and Promotion Board with the USDA. Alice is a native of Knoxville. She met Caleb while they were both attending university and earning her bachelor's degree in business administration. She then went on to earn a master's of public health in administration from the University of Tennessee. She served as a healthcare administrator for a pulmonary critical care and hospitalist practice until she moved to Maryland with Caleb. She serves as the treasurer of Long Green Farms, hosts the Adopt a Cow program for the state of Maryland with the American Dairy Association. She serves as an associate on the Cecil County Soil Conservation District Board and as a regional council representative for Land O'Lakes. She's also graduate of Class 12 of the Young Dairy Leaders Institute from the Holstein Foundation. Alice and Caleb have 3 spunky daughters who are shown in this picture here, Sarah Lyon, Henley, and Baylor. And they are award winners of the Maryland Leopold Conservation Award, which is given to farmers, ranchers, and forest land owners across the U.S. in honor of renowned conservationist Aldo Leopold. He called for an ethical relationship between people and the land they own and manage. And we're here today to hear a little bit more about how Alice and Caleb are doing that at Long Green Farm. At this point, I get to stop talking quite so much and let them get a word in edgewise here. Alice, Caleb, thank you very much. I know you guys have had a busy day, and you're in 2 separate places coming together for the Lunch and Learn. So thank you so much. We're going to start with just letting one of you give us sort of an overview of the farm. Caleb, I'm thinking that might be you.
It can be. I'll do. So we are Long Green Farms, and currently we have almost 150 cows running through our parlor right now. We raise all our own heifers on site, so we're pushing total animals on site, calves to dry cows, somewhere knocking on 300 cows right now. We are about 560 acres of total land, and around 425 of that is tillable. The rest includes streams, buffers, a whole bunch of woods, terraces, and otherwise not used for agriculture ground. How's that?
That's awesome. And if I missed it, forgive me, but did you say how long you've been there and sort of how the farm evolved to become yours to manage?
Yeah, so we moved back around 2015, but I was born and raised here. So I left for almost 15 years between school and career. Originally, it was founded in the mid 1700s with from immigrants from Scotland, which are descendants. We are descendants of them. I obtained ownership when Dad passed. So what brought me back is Dad was sick and dying. And once we knew that he was terminal, we made the decision to come back to the farm. So I'm the bottom of the bucket. I was the youngest of 3 brothers and the last option. And so it kind of fell to us. If we didn't come, I don't believe we'd be in business right now. So yeah, we've been back, I guess, about 8 years or so. And it's been a lot of fun, a couple of years of misery, but it's gotten a lot better, and I think we've finally gained some traction.
You and I and Alice had a conversation that sort of highlighted how you came to the decision to sort of dive into conservation funding opportunities, and I'd love to just talk about that a little bit now, kind of leveraging those cost share dollars.
Yeah, so we are a small farm in the grand scheme of things. If you drive around our county, I think we have conventional dairies, not counting Amish, maybe 8 or 9 left. There's not a lot. And so we try to understand the industry, and it is consolidating. Like it or not, large farms are getting larger, and there's nothing wrong with being a large farm. That's just the way it's going financially. People are doing what they have to do. So we got a pretty good grasp on where our industry was going, and we came to the conclusion that we were pretty happy where we were, which 130, 150 cows. We're happy there, and so I know the industry's consolidating, and that kind of forces our hand to diversify. So we want to stay where we're at, numbers wise and cows wise, and we looked at how could we diversify our operation to remain financially viable for the next generation. And so if you drive around our neighborhood, comparable size farms have diversified to survive. We have custom operators for field work, direct to consumer farms that are making their own butter, cheese, beef, you name it. They're doing things to continue. And so when we looked at what we could do, none of those things really appeal to us. I don't look at my future as direct to consumer, because I don't really enjoy that aspect of sales and the hours with retail. And we looked at, do we do field work for other folks? Do we diversify there? And that's not really my happy place. So what we decided on is we looked at our conservation as a way to diversify our operation, which ultimately we can use USDA, we can use our NRCS folks and funding opportunities to reduce our input costs ultimately. And so we kind of look at that as a way for us to diversify. None of the other options out there really appealed to us. And so we look at conservation as ultimately our way of diversifying so that we can continue into the next generation.
Nice. Let's specifically talk about this project, because I know that's one of the things you guys are proud to have checked off the list.
Is that you, Alice, or me?
Yeah, no, I'll go ahead. So in 2020, we partnered with Appalachian Stream Restoration and Wetland Studies, and we reconstructed 14,219 linear feet of streams that run through our farm. And our stream is a direct tributary into the Northeast Creek, which directly contributes to the Chesapeake Bay. And so the project included removing 8,763 pounds of nitrogen, 1,210 pounds of phosphorus, and 1,974 pounds of sediment annually. Also, the project included planting over 60,000 trees. So that's something we're really proud of, but we were also very fortunate by the outcome. If you can see by the photos, it's just gorgeous. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Caleb, or?
No, I think a couple things that were not included in that were we did receive a couple stream crossings. So we did shore up some issues we had with 2 crossings that were added to that as well.
Out of curiosity, and I don't usually jump into the middle here, but what kind of help did you get in determining all of those different reductions and co-benefits that happen? You just rattled off a long list of nitrogen and sediment. Where did that come from?
So in our partnership with Appalachian Stream Restoration and Wetland Studies, they were able to really coordinate, plan, and complete the project. So as landowners, it was actually pretty simple on our part because of our relationship with them. They really managed the project for us.
That's amazing. If one or the other of you wants to pop that partnership link or the name in the chat box so that others can see it and maybe use it as a resource. I'm sure there are, it's regional. We've got to be working with partners that are proximate to where our farms are, but thank you for that. Let's talk about cover crops.
Alice, there's a question in the chat just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Can't see that, so I apologize.
Trees that were planted in this project.
Yes, there was 60,000 trees planted in this project.
And I assume a diverse array of species.
Yes, and I don't actually have that information, but if we're interested in that information, I'm happy to collect that information from Appalachian Stream Restoration or Wetland Studies and feed that out to the group.
Yeah, that is okay. If somebody wants to know more about that, give us a high sign. And while we're paying attention to chat a little bit, I'll just mention again for folks that came in later, feel free to introduce yourselves, use chat to ask questions, to clarify things as you're already doing. But we also appreciate knowing if you're not a farmer, what brought you here? Are you a service provider? Are you just an interested person who lives in the area thinking about doing any of this kind of work on your own? And kind of what are you interested in learning about that relates to soil health? So would you like to know more about cover crops, about stream restoration, about roller crimping, about diversifying your farm? Any of those things can land in chat as you wish. All right, now cover crops. Who wants to tackle that and tell us how you're approaching your cover crop operation at Long Green?
I can do that. So when we started, the first year I was here, we planted about 35 acres, and we just used it as a small buffer in our feed, our TMR for our feed. Um, so we really looked at that and how we could maximize that. And, Maryland does a good job at giving us opportunity with getting that seed in the ground. So we do maximize the money that comes from per acre. And so we grew that. So this past year, we planted everything. And that was the first year that we've been able to get all of our ground, not counting our hay ground, seeded. And so we've learned a lot as we've gone along. We started out with just triticale. We branched over to rye. We've played with some blends. And this past year, we started mixing in radishes. We started to think about how could we get more. And so we invested in a no-till drill, and that was great. And we got corn off, and we started getting those acres planted. And what we found is we were sitting there looking at corn and beans in the field and wishing we could go and get them covered. And we just, we didn't have an airplane to come over, and we didn't know how we could do it. So I have a hired guy that can be fairly creative. And so we took an old sprayer, and everything that makes it a sprayer we removed. We put in a fertilizer box. We stole the Green Star off of my chopper, and we made an aerial ground applicator. So this past year was the first year that we used that. We played with it in years past until we built up to that. But that was pretty neat. So we're actually running through all our standing corn with a homemade machine instead of paying for a plane or somebody else to come and do it. And it's really opened up what we can get covered. We've seen, for anybody wanting to try it, and what we have seen is that the timing on soybeans is particular. We haven't seen as much with success in broadcasting into soybean ground. I think it's a timing thing. If we get it at just the right time, and maybe the leaves are coming off those plants, and we get just the right moisture, but not too much, you can get a pretty decent stand. But what we've seen is with corn is it's been almost 100% success through the corn. So the beans we're still learning, but the aerial ground applicator was really neat. And if you want to see a picture of it, don't expect anything fancy because it is hideous, but it does work. And so this year, what we're going to try is we're going to start playing with interseeding this year. So we have taken an old conventional drill that we had sitting that hasn't run in probably a decade. And so we started cutting and welding and moving those row units around. And so this year we converted it to a 3-point hitch, and we're going to start seeing if we can start interseeding with that drill. And that's kind of our next step. Down the road, I think we look at the opportunities and the cost of nitrogen, and trying to figure out how to get nitrogen into our ground. And so I think moving forward, I think we're going to look at interseeding and playing with some clovers and some other blends where we can start pulling nitrogen down into the ground and get that planted, somewhere where that corn's maybe knee high, and see what kind of benefits we get. That's our plan.
Gosh, the innovation is really exciting. You guys are, it's just so evident how invested you are in this. And in my, somewhat educated opinion, it's not just because it makes you feel warm and fuzzy. It's because it's working for the farm. There's a combination of, there's got to be profitability for the things that you're trying to add. And it sounds like you're finding those sweet spots.
Yeah. So the clover, I want to say that the clover is a tricky thing for us. I have a great interest in it. But the cost of the seed is extraordinary. And so we've looked at, we don't have the climate that's conventional to grow that seed to produce our own. But that doesn't mean we won't try. So I think down the road, I think ultimately to make that pencil out, I think that we have to figure out, and it'll take some failures, I think, and maybe some luck. But if we can figure out how to produce that seed and not have to buy it, because I think if you're paying for it, we're running into putting pencil to paper, and does it justify itself? I don't know. But we want to learn if we can grow that ourselves. The harvest is tricky because we need a pretty arid, dry window to get that, and Maryland doesn't really provide that. So we have ideas, but we'll have to wait and see how it works out.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be some folks really interested to know. Let's move to your milking parlor and heavy use area renovations. I don't know which of you wanted to speak to those.
I can do that. So when we moved home, we are still milking in the original parlor. It's a block building built in the 70s. So when we moved home, I would describe it as non-functional, pretty rough. As a double six, and so we obviously there was a need to make that more efficient. So what we did with the parlors, we expanded. So we just stretched it a couple stalls, but brought in new equipment. We made it a little more comfortable for us. We dropped our pit down 8 inches. I think that in the 70s, people must have been shorter because we were hunched over trying to milk. So we dropped the pit down, brought in stainless curbs, new stalls, new equipment, and made a big difference. So there's a quality of life improvement for us as well, because I'm part of my milking crew. I don't have other folks do all my milking. I'm in there every day just about. So that was a great improvement, quality of life wise and management wise. And the heavy use area was a program with NRCS. I would say out of everything, all the projects that we've done, it made the greatest improvement for our quality of life. Parlor was good, but that heifer facility, the heavy use area, was monumental for us. So as we started to improve our herd and, we started growing replacements, so we got better at feeding, breeding, and milking, we realized we had more heifers. And so we were probably the first people in line when the heavy use area program popped up. And so that barn consolidated our heifers. So we made initially, so go back 8 years when we had a calf hit the ground, that calf made 7 moves before it made its way to the barn. And each time required a trailer and 3 or 4 people, and barn to barn to barn, and shuttling them and moving them was, to be honest, it was a total waste of time. We could not keep them clean enough. I couldn't manage I couldn't manage them the way that I would deem acceptable. So that program came along. And so now we make 3 moves. And those moves can all be made from calf barn to the weaning barn to the heavy use area with 1 person. So we've made that far more efficient. So in addition to that, I don't think we have an aerial shot of what was there, but that was a mud hole. It was pretty destroyed. And so now we have a beautiful heifer facility, and we can breed and we can clean and we can manage so much more efficiently than we did before. All the rainwater from that facility is diverted to a separate area, discharge pipe away from all our pastures. So it's done a great job. So not only environmentally, but in terms of our operation, we could breathe. I think that on Christmas Eve one year, we had a knock on the door, and I don't know who showed up, but he had an ABS hat on, and it was 8 o'clock, and heifers were in the road again. I almost threw in the towel. I think I'd had enough. So that building was a game changer for us, for sure.
So believe it or not, we're at the 5-minute mark, and we've got a little bit of ground still to cover. We mentioned, I think Alice, you mentioned partnerships early on, and maybe just a quick reminder of the different groups that you've worked with. Obviously, NRCS and Soil Conservation District up there in Cecil County.
Absolutely. They have been a huge partner for us, but they also have helped us open doors to meet other partners along the way. We also placed our farm in preservation through Cecil Land Trust. And through that partnership, we were introduced to the Alliance of the Chesapeake Bay. We were also introduced to Appalachian Wetland Studies. We were also introduced to Appalachian Stream Restoration and to Wetland Studies. So I think partnerships have been really key to us, because majority of these projects, we have not been the primary source of work, if you will. These partnerships have really worked on our behalf. So I would say partnerships in conservation are key.
I think the next couple of slides, I remember right, are kind of focused on your hay operation. How do we want to talk about that a little bit?
So those photos are actually our small grain.
Oh,
So-
I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay. See, this is a picture, and a picture is not worth 1,000 words.
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's us running our equipment. I think that's last spring, so about a year
It is.
ago.
And tell us a little bit about your small grain program.
So we started with all triticale, and then we split after that and went to rye, and then we started playing with blends. So we blended a little bit of triticale and rye, and to be honest, what we experimented with was, I was kind of curious with a little plot, not much land wise, but I wanted to see performance wise with my animals what we could produce. And so that's what kind of got me interested with the blends. And then this past year we started focusing on trying to eliminate more tillage. So last year our radishes went in. That's the first time that I had planted radishes since I'd been here. And we started with 35 acres. We've planted every acre. We don't need all that. And so right now, the harvest wise, we'll probably harvest about 160 acres. We'll usually leave something behind so we can get straw. So we'll leave some for grain. And the things that we've played with over the last 3 years is just test plots, 3, 4, 5, 6 acres. We planted through some standing rye 2 years ago, and not pulling soil samples, not referring to those right this second, but one of the benefits that I saw was retained moisture in our ground. So we planted through standing rye and rolled it, and we liked what we saw. So last year we expanded that. Last year we took an 11-acre piece and we did the same, different soil, higher ground. And what we noticed was we had significantly more moisture within there. So I think we're going to continue to play with that. And ultimately, if we can make it work, we are conventional dairy. We do use herbicide and pesticide, but obviously I think there's opportunity to reduce those inputs, which again, we look at conservation as a way to diversify, which that diversification ultimately can reduce our inputs. And so we're going to keep playing with that and see what we can do to continue to reduce our herbicide use.
Now, I know your girls are too young to have committed to staying on the farm. I would imagine that every parent kind of hopes somebody will. But I think that's part of the thought process based on our conversations earlier, just, leaving this land in a way that they might have something to sustain their futures. Alice, would you want to talk about your girls and whether or not you think they're going to land here as the 9th generation?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I would say is, you don't get to be an 8th generation dairy farmer without taking care of your land, water, and resources. So I believe that many generations of Crothers have said, I want to carry this farm to the next generation, and therefore I have to take care of the land, the water, the resources around us to be able to do that. And I would say that's very much our thought process also. And I think our girls see the investment that we're making in the farm and in the environment. And they know that a bulk of what we do is so that they have the opportunity if they so choose. So I want my daughters to feel like they have a choice. But I hope that in the example that we display to them every day in what we do, that they see that we're preparing the farm for them to have the opportunity if they choose.
Wow, amazing timing, also an amazing story. I'll mention to folks that at this point, it's 12:31, I think. Folks who really need to hop off, please feel free to do so. And, we give you our appreciation for being here and being attentive. But Caleb and Alice are going to stick around for another few minutes for folks who might want to ask some questions in person. And sometimes it just feels like there's a little more openness to do that here towards the end. So we aren't going to close out yet, but those of you who need to are welcome to sign off at this point. And thank you all for being here. again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is a good time to hop on camera if you feel comfortable with that, just so we can see whose faces are asking questions. And I'm going to open the floor to anybody who might want to know a little bit more about something that's been discussed or something that hasn't been discussed.
I guess I'll ask a question. Hi, Alice and Caleb. Thank you for the presentation and good to see you all again. You mentioned the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you have planned with them coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is our next partnership, if you will. We have worked with them to convert 7 acres of former pasture land into forested buffers. So it's going to be a multi-step process. And I'll get into the business aspect of that because I think this is super important when we talk about sustainability projects. But with our partnership with them, they also have in exchange given us a voucher towards another conservation project. So that is huge when you talk about how sustainability can work for your business. In the project, we have some canary reed grass that's down there. And so the first process this spring is they're going to kill the canary reed grass because the trees that they will be planting will not survive with the canary reed grass. And then they'll spray them twice this spring, and then they're going to come back this fall to start planting. And they're still in the final design process to tell me exactly the number of trees that they're going to plant. But I did make some notes about the species. So let's see, sycamore, berry, willow, and dogwood, but final plans are still being drafted.
I think it's a good time to mention that it worked out for us with the NRCS vouchers, or the conservation practice vouchers, because we are installing as we speak. We've got a mechanical sand separator going in to recycle the sand out of our manure. We're expecting about 800 plus tons a year to be returned to the farm. We're putting in walkways, roofing, and water diversion as we speak. We have construction going on. Yesterday, concrete was going in, sticks are in, and a manure pit. So the timing of it was ideal. We're doing projects right this second. So that was a great partnership to run into. And the way we met them was through a field day with NRCS. So we went to a local field day, and they were there. And so I thought that might be a good opportunity, and it's worked out. We're excited to see that go in this fall.
Great, thank you.
I just popped in chat a link to the video that was produced as part of the Leopold Conservation Award. It's just delightful. I would really encourage you guys to spend a few minutes watching that at your leisure after the webinar today. It's really fun, especially the ending with the kids. Other questions? I see maybe I'm coming in on the tail end of something here that Tasha included. Tasha, were you introducing yourself, or were you looking for that to be more of a question? I'm not even sure Tasha's still with us, actually. She may have had to hop off.
Feel free to ask away. We're pretty open with what we've done here. I think if there's any questions at all, we're more than happy to talk about what we're trying to do.
It's a little hard to tell always with just names. Be curious to know who in the room is farming or planning to farm. Maybe just a quick shout or something in chat. And alternatively, if you're here as a service provider, how you feel like the Crothers story might help you in your relationships with folks in your own districts.
I would tell you that if you drive around our community, I think that I said this at the Farm Bureau banquet with when the award was presented. I think we have a community of folks that are all on the same page, and so maybe we've had some projects that have stuck out, but I think that within our neighborhood, if you will, if you go 10 miles in all directions, I think we're surrounded by like-minded people. And so that has to do with a good relationship with our NRCS folks who are not working against us, but really working for us and with us. And the network around us is beneficial. And there's nothing better than learning from somebody that's made the mistake. And so I've had a lot of neighbors that have saved me some heartache. And we're very grateful for the people around us.
Caleb, I see that Myrna has asked if you've given any thought to converting to organic.
No. So just very bluntly, no, not at all. So I am conventional dairy, and I logged on late with our pre-meeting here because our veterinarian was here. So we use University of Pennsylvania, New Bolton Center. I am not against organic at all. I support those folks just the same as any other neighbor that I have. But as for me, in my personal opinion, I look at using a veterinarian and their prescribed medicines as an animal welfare issue. So me personally, I look at my animals as the best way that I can treat them is with a vet and conventional medicine. I believe that you have to be responsible, and you have to kind of detect what needs it and what doesn't. But I believe that personally, not from an industry standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, when it comes to animal welfare, I think that conventional veterinarian care, prescribed medicines is the best route. I'm not against, let me make sure I'm not talking against any folks that are organic. They have my full support. But as for my personal business, for our farm, that I believe that is the best route for me.
We're all making personal choices. Other questions? We don't have to continue, but I want there to be you all to feel at liberty to chime in.
And that type of question doesn't bother me at all. I take no offense to it. And for the consumer that chooses organic over conventional, I have no heartburn. Those folks are doing a great job. But I'm pretty happy where we are.
I have a question, somewhat related. Alice, I'm curious about how your current work in agriculture and in conservation is tied in with your experience in public health.
So I would actually tell you that's a very complicated question. So in my experience, I worked mostly in a hospital setting, but I also became very passionate about health and fitness. And I guess when you're around sick people every day, which I spent 10 years in nursing homes, in hospitals, I became very passionate about my own health and fitness and pursuing that path. And so I would tell you that going into farming and food production and knowing how your food is produced, I think is wildly important to your personal fitness and your personal health and making consumer choices. So I'm also a mother. And so when I think about what I want to feed my family, feed my children, and feed my own body, I think that very much is tied into farming. So really, my background in public health taught me a lot more about wanting to take care of my own body and the health of my family.
More questions? I see there are a number of folks here who I recognize from the Cecil County Farm Service arena, and I will just put in a plug for them. I have personally enjoyed through the relationships I've built with Million Acre Challenge, their enthusiasm for these kinds of projects. And Caleb, you were talking about kind of the mindset of folks around you, and I really do see that in Cecil County a lot. There's a lot of community support, farm service support, and it's just a very kind of can-do region. Totally approve of the kind of work that's going on in Cecil County.
Yeah, I had a quick question. As new recipients of the Leopold Conservation Award, have you received any questions or comments or any kind of outreach from farmers or ranchers in other parts of the country after they've seen your video or read your story?
So I run our social media platforms, and I would tell you I've not necessarily received questions, but I have received tremendous amount of support and followers. So one of the things that I do in our social media platforms is I'm a mother, I'm a consumer, and I didn't grow up in agriculture. And so my desire is to bring consumers to the farm to see how food is produced and to have more of a personal relationship with farming and the production of agriculture. And I would tell you that the Leopold Award has literally launched me into a completely different media arena that I may never have reached. And again, we sell nothing direct to consumer. And so my page and my Instagram account is only for educational purposes. And I do believe that the Leopold Award has really helped bring consumers and farmers more towards the farm.
Alice, what is where are your social media handles in case folks want to go there?
Yeah, I'm Hills and Holstein. That's Heels, Hills and Holsteins, both on Facebook and on Instagram. And then we also have a website. So if anybody else is interested in kind of some of the other things that we've done on the project, on the farm, or future projects that we're working with, our website is longgreenfarms.com. It kind of gives a history of our family, but it also gives an overview of the projects that we've done, some of the public outreach projects that we've worked with, along with some of our conservation projects that we're working with now and future conservation projects.
Excellent. I am actually popping in chat right now a link to the form to join the Million Acre Challenge for those who want to do that. As I said at the beginning, there's no fees, there's no obligations. It's just a way for us to know who within the community is supporting, the soil health journey. And so that's what's there. I'm going to go ahead and close us out. We've done a great job of wrapping up this latter 15 minutes, and thanks to Alice and Caleb for being willing to tack that on. Super grateful to them, to Amy for being here to help me run the back end, and to all of you for your interest and your support of this work. Don't hesitate to reach out to me or other folks on webinar in the future if you so choose. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Went fast.
Yeah.